Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you guys are doing well because, as I was discussing with a few of you on Discord, I think I'm done with the week and it's Tuesday. I don't know if you guys are done with your week, but I'm pretty much done with mine. So, the good thing is, I got a trip planned soon and it will not involve, hopefully, me bringing my work computer with me. So, that will be a great thing. So let's go to the chat, and I'm gonna have to keep this live a little shorter than normal because I will be on with Hudson Valley at 7 Central, so it's 8 Eastern here in a couple of hours. So I'll do my little live here. We'll be cooking dinner, eating, and then I'm gonna jump on with my boys up on the East Coast. Good afternoon, Mr. Joe and Van City Prepper. And if you missed it, we did a live with Van and myself and a few other folks and Mr. That was a lot of fun. Hey, Navi. Navi, I have heard some horror stories in Houston regarding the gas stations lately. So, yeah, I gave up. I got tired of the day. I skipped the Coke and drawn a line, dude. I could do that. Play beer pong by myself against the wall. Shoot, guys, it's been a week. Hey, Annie, how are you? Hey, Coffee, welcome. Coffee first, yeah. So you'll like this one. Sassy got this mug, and it got one cabinet. Sorry, my bad. And she got it run off from the office. Let's do it the dumbest way possible because it's easier for you. So she put that up there, and the manager's like, "Are you trying to provoke people?" So she said, "No, why would I do such a thing?" Of course she was provoking people. He knows that, I know that, and she knows that. But yes, Annie, please drive safe. Hey, Prepper Cowboy, how you doing, Brad? Hey, first things first, the southern seaboard is getting hammered with a lot of storms right now. So they're kind of going, last I looked, the line of storms was right around Dallas, and it was a swath. I guess Tennessee was the northern edge of it, and it was going across to the coast. So it's going to hit like the Panhandle. It's going to hit Alabama, Mississippi, the Carolinas. So if you're in that area, there were tornadoes reported in Texas last night. You guys will probably get some of those. So make sure you kind of pay attention to what your Apple Watch is being a shit right now. Make sure you're paying attention to that weather and trying to avoid driving in those conditions because that could get kind of ugly. I was going to back away per se from the Ukraine conflict. I saw Zelensky address the UN earlier. And granted, he's an actor, but the dude looked pissed. But then again, hey, Hudson, what's going on? Thank you for jumping in. And again, reminder, I'll be, Hudson and I will be on at 8 Eastern, 7 Central. So in a few hours from now, we'll be up there on his channel and talking smack and whatever other mischief we can get into until YouTube kicks us off. Although I've never gotten blatantly kicked off of a platform yet. I'm sure eventually I will. I have gotten dinged a few times though, so I guess I was kind of on that border. Folks, the whole Ukraine thing, I don't even know what to make of it. So I'm not going to even mess with that right now. I will try to compile some good videos of the combat footage because I think what's happening to the people, regardless of the politics. Hey, Mrs. Ghetto, welcome. And thank you for joining us. You can drop this site info to Hudson. Oh yeah, I did share it, Navi. I shared it on my community tabs. I thought I did. Anyway, if not, it's Hudson Valley Prepping and Survival, that guy. So I think we can learn a lot of lessons from what happened to the Ukrainian people. And I'm not talking about the war crimes. Obviously, people will come and kill people. I'm talking about the systemic collapse of what people rely on: the power, the phones, the food, the water, people living in their basements. I don't think people in the West, especially in the US of A and Canada, especially in the US of A, really appreciate how shitty that can get very quickly. And then, of course, Potato was saying that we should try Putin as a war crime, which, if I was Putin, I'd be hearing the following: you may as well not surrender, because we're going to hang you or throw you in jail, or we're going to try. So, yeah. But there are lessons to be learned, but I need a little more time to kind of look through some videos and find something meaningful instead of fear-mongering stuff. I want it to be, I try, you know my style, I try to be focused on, all right, look at what's going on here, here's your lesson. And I haven't had a chance to really dig through it. So we're going to start, instead, I want to talk about food supply and how it's going to affect us. Everyone's freaking out. They're like, oh, there's no food. But what exactly does that mean, right? Like, are we not going to have wheat? On the one hand, I heard, oh, wheat supply in Ukraine is going to affect the global market. Fair enough. But someone else said US and Canada did really well on the wheat harvest. So if the governments have any clue, which it's debatable, right? But you would think they'd hold a little more domestically and export less, or give that directive to the companies. So, and that's true, Joe, yeah. But now I bet he'd be concerned to negotiate even, because he'll be like, oh, you shits will come after me later. And yeah, I don't think this is the end of the show. I think the show is changing stages. So, and we'll probably get into that this evening with Hudson. But I got this really neat video, and I want to see, because I saw part of it earlier, and I wanted to share it with you guys. Let me see if I can make it play nice here. Right, General Mills can't fill 30% of their orders, so the question is, are they going to hold some of the domestic product back? Let me see if, all right, I got the right person.
What is up with needing to refinance your mortgage every time you go to the grocery store lately? Am I right? The prices at the grocery stores lately are bananas. Not about just bananas, by the way. But
True.
What you may not know is that a lot of this tracks back to Russia's unprovoked attack on Ukraine. Listen up, because the problem could get worse. Ukraine is nicknamed the breadbasket of Europe because the country produces about 10% of the world's wheat and 14% of its corn and half of its sunflower oil. So Russia and Ukraine together typically export more than 25% of the world's wheat. So between the war and the sanctions, food prices have spiked, and some experts are sounding the alarm about a global food shortage and increase in world hunger that could impact our own kitchen tables right here at home. I want to talk about this with Joseph Glauber. He's a senior research fellow for the International Food Policy Research Institute, and I'm so happy to have him here.
Well, that guy's hair.
Joseph, thanks for being here. We got to talk about Russia's attack
Sonic the Hedgehog's dad.
Cast a dark shadow over other parts of the globe when it comes to food insecurity.
Well, I have no hair, so
There'll
I have
be
nothing to
important
say.
ramifications for the Middle East, for Africa, North Africa, and Sub-Saharan Africa in particular. Explain to our viewers, if you can, quickly and concisely, how exactly that is.
Sure. First, before even the war in Ukraine started, commodity markets were already at very high levels. So prices for wheat and corn and soybeans and other agricultural commodities were at the highest level in probably the last 10 years. Ukraine and Russia are, as you say, very important exporters in the world markets, accounting for almost 30% of wheat and a large portion of the corn and sunflower oil that's traded. And so sharply curtailed exports from that coming out of that region have set prices even higher over the last 6 weeks. And these are globally traded commodities, so prices are felt, or high prices are felt by everyone. But as you say, that particularly those countries that import a lot of those commodities directly from Russia and Ukraine, so countries in North Africa, in the Middle East, where wheat accounts for much as 35% of their calories, they're seeing prices go through the roof for bread prices and things like that. And they import most of that wheat.
Are there other countries in a position to make up for that shortfall? Because we're, like you said, we're seeing the real-time consequences of all this.
Yes, but it's going to take time. You know, about 60% of the wheat crop in the world is planted in the fall and harvested in the late spring, early summer. So what we hope, of course, is that that wheat is going to be in good shape as it emerges out of dormancy this winter. But most of the rest of the crop is planted in the spring, and thus far, at least indications here in the U.S. indicate that we're not going to see that much more wheat planted. That's probably true in Canada as well. A little later on, we'll see countries like Australia and Argentina plant for harvest at the end of the year. But that's all going to take time before those prices and that harvest starts getting on the market. And hopefully the war will wind down and that we'll see more wheat come out of the Black Sea.
Yeah, you know, we talked a little bit about this yesterday, Joe. Listen, it's really hard on these programs sometimes because people want to know, how is this impacting me? Why do I care about this? It's the narcissism of Americans sometimes that we're appealing to. But this will impact Americans right here at home. When global hunger happens, we get impacted here in America. But also sudden price and cost in food, this can lead to social unrest. I mean, this is essentially led to the Arab uprising, the Arab Spring that we all saw. Should that happen here, what does a food shortage look like here domestically? And how does this happening all across the globe, how does it impact our kitchen tables here at home?
Yeah, well, again, food inflation, when we look at the February numbers, they were the highest level since 1981. Food at home up 8.6% year over year. So that's a lot. Now, I would say that the commodity prices are probably a small part of that. We also look at energy and labor and other things that are all seeing these strong inflationary trends. But if you look at, say, a loaf of bread, about 5%, just 5% of that is actually the cost of the wheat. And, you know, if you look over the last year or 18 months or so, wheat prices are up almost double, but flour prices up 12%, bread prices up 6.5% or so. It's not a problem of availability here in the U.S. Food will be here, but it's just going to be more costly. And that's particularly a concern for poor households.
Yeah, and we know poor households disproportionately are people of color. And just to point out, before we go to break, in 2008 and again in 2011, food shortages and food price increases were associated with riots in more than 40 countries. So this is something that we definitely want to pay attention to. And I thank you, Joe, for being here to help us talk it all through. And you'll have to come back so we can talk more about it.
All right. And I thought that was a good video to start with because it kind of gives you some perspective, you know, because a lot of people are saying, oh, there'll be no food. No, there'll be food. But lurking while working. Hey, Ghetto, what's going on? What one of the problems is obviously it's not like a spigot, right? It's like oil and gas, which we've talked about before. You don't just like open the door and wheat comes out, right? You have to plant them, but you can only plant them at certain times in certain ways in certain areas. So even as the market tries to shift, you're going to battle that, right? You're going to battle that change. Peacock News. Hey, I take my news from all sources, man, because I try and keep, because I think they're all full of shit in their own way. Just they're full of shit in different ways, depending on which channel you're watching. So you kind of mix it up a little bit. But yeah, so good Lord. Hey, she was sound asleep and woke up and barked at me. UPS. Yep, I hear the truck. Okay, God, that woke me up. All right, so who needs rum and coke? You got a corgi. She's in her pen right now because she beat up the loofah again. Who provoked it, by the way. But you're going to see that. So going forward, at least for the next quarter or two, you're going to see this kind of price increase, right? So this is a good time. No, all of them are barking. Shh. Hey, I heard it. I heard the doorbell. Shh. She's barking at me now. She's like, go to the door, Dad. What was that? Anyway, she like snarfed when she barked that last time. So you're looking at an increase in prices, not so much a question of availability here in the Western Hemisphere. Argentina, Brazil, the US, Canada. Based on that analyst, you're going to have, I know. Your dogs run over? Yeah. And that's the concern, Mrs. Ghetto, is the cost is the problem, not so much availability. You can find it, but not the cost. And that's going to be an issue. So we had this other analyst. This one's from ABC, so it's another completely different channel. Let me see if I can bring this lady up, and we can listen to her real quick. It's not a very long video either. And let's see if we can get Ding Dong to speak here.
Who knew that this Russian invasion of Ukraine would actually steal from your breadbasket?
Let me know if you can hear this one too.
But everyone around the world. The United Nations this week is warning that this fight could cause one of the most disastrous global food shortages since World War II. Russia has actually become the largest exporter of wheat worldwide, and Ukraine is also a major contributor. And that's why Representative Austin Scott joins me now as a senior member of the House Armed Services Committee and the House Agricultural Committee. He's monitoring and preparing for food shortage across the globe due to what he says is Vladimir Putin's obsession with restoring the former Soviet Union. Good to have you, Congressman. Let's talk about Ukrainian farmers. And you wrote about this. They've had to become fighters, trading tractors for tanks. Has that just wiped out their farms?
It pretty much has, at least for the next several months. And as you know, if you don't get a crop planted, then you can't get a crop harvested. And so, Kara, what we're seeing right now is that the labor's not there to get the crops in the ground. The diesel's not there to run the equipment. You've got logistical issues with seed and chemicals and fertilizer. So we're very concerned that Ukraine is not able to get a crop planted, much less harvested. And they have been the largest supplier of the UN World Food Program, 50 million metric tons of corn and wheat that they export to the world. And so when we talk about these shortages, I want people who are watching this to understand, I still think if you're in the United States, you're going to be able to go to the grocery store and you're going to be able to buy a loaf of bread. We're talking about those countries that are fed out of the UN World Food Program and some of the other less fortunate countries that literally may not have food.
Right, and they depend on those bags of grain. We see it in every situation being brought in to help people that are in fear of starving. You know, not just you're not the only one talking about this, but Secretary of State Antony Blinken blaming Russia today, actually, for the soaring prices of staples like wheat. And President Biden, as you know, had it on his agenda as he met with European leaders. Let's take a listen.
It's going to be real. The price of these sanctions is not just imposed upon Russia. It's imposed upon an awful lot of countries as well, including European countries and our country as well. And because both Russia and Ukraine have been the breadbasket of Europe in terms of wheat, for example. We are in the process of working out with our European friends what it would take to help alleviate the concerns relative to food shortages.
And as you know, the president also said that he and the Canadian Prime Minister Trudeau, they talked about increasing agricultural production in the U.S. and Canada to help make up for these shortfalls. He's actually urging countries to drop trade restrictions. Do you support that? And what else do you think the U.S. should be doing?
Sure, I do think we should drop the trade restrictions, absolutely. And you know, the one thing I want to point out is that it's not necessarily the sanctions that are going to lead to the shortage as much as it is that the war is going to prevent the crops from even being planted, and the logistics of getting the crop in the field and out of the field and actually delivered to people that need it. So you may see some increased price in the U.S. from, for example, the Russian oil ban, which I support. I wish we had done it in December instead of this past month. But it's not the sanctions that are going to lead to the shortage of food globally. It is the Russian invasion and the inability to actually plant the crops. Now, the other issue that we have to watch in the U.S. for our agriculture is the increased cost of production, going up from $300 to $400 an acre depending on where you are, because Russia is the #1 producer of nitrogen. They are #2 or #3 in Belarus, falling in #2, #3 in potash. Now, Canada does have the ability to put more potash in the market. They're #1. But those are 2 of the 3 primary ingredients in fertilizer. And so we're very concerned also about cost of production in the U.S. and, just logistically, the ability to have the fertilizer that we need for the yields that we're used to in America, not just for this crop year, but for the next one as well.
Well, then we should probably talk about sunflowers as well. I don't think a lot of people
Absolutely.
realize. So tell us a little bit about that. I mean, sunflower oil, look, I use it. I know a lot of people that use it, and a lot of countries depend on it.
Sure, Ukraine is #1 in sunflower, and therefore #1 in sunflower oil. The oil goes to India, it goes to Africa, and it comes to the United States. And the fact of the matter is, again, you and I will probably pay a little more for that sunflower oil when we walk into the grocery store, but it's going to be those low-income countries around the world that is simply not going to be available in those countries. And so we're talking about the basics of life that Vladimir Putin has eliminated for a lot of the low-income and poor countries around the world. And so I think the UN needs to be pressing on a weekly basis to make sure that countries like China, who have been supportive through silence in some cases and supportive through positive votes in other cases of Russia and Russia's invasion, the UN needs to be doing more to get these countries on record with regard to where they stand for the damage that's being done to the global food supply by Vladimir Putin and his invasion.
And we can't forget 1932, the Great Famine. Stalin starved millions of Ukrainians. We don't want history to repeat itself. Congressman Austin Scott, thank you so much for your time.
Yep, we don't need to see George Snuffleupagus or whatever his name is, because he's not fun. All right, be good, buddy. We'll see you later tonight, man. Am I still mute? Can you hear me, or am I still muted? Hell, I work 2 full-time jobs. No, I feel you. I feel you. Okay. Yeah, I guess I unmuted faster than Lucky could type, but yeah, thank you, Lucky. Not muted now. By the way, Lucky's a rock star. Make sure you go to her lives on Sunday. Her work schedule's kind of in and out, but definitely. So, look, based on what everyone's saying, availability in the Western world, if you will, especially most of us, Canada, US, Aussies, even South America, we're going to be able to. Mrs. Dame is a bit elderly. Her hearing is going. Careful now, man. If she kicks your butt, I want nothing to do with that. So it's going to be a question of hedging your bets against the food price increase, right? So again, I've said it before, you want to buy now, eat tomorrow on today's pricing, kind of like I'm eating right now from yesterday's pricing or last year's pricing. So I did a live actually on another platform, and I had a lot of interaction because surprisingly, I did it in the middle of the day, and I had a lot of parents pop in at lunchtime and were asking about meal preps for kids and stuff, which was very cool. And then this one knucklehead goes, "What are you all preparing for?" Of course, it was someone, when you look at their profile, they have no views, no followers, no videos. They just made an account so they can talk shit to people. And I looked at the camera. I'm like, dude, in the last 5 years, we've had major hurricanes, a pandemic, a shutdown. Then they kept the shutdown for no reason once they figured out what the hell was going on. Then we had a war in Europe and supply chain issues, and fucking bleach is $6. I'm like, dude, if that doesn't tell you to buy now for tomorrow, I don't know what to tell you, man. Good luck. Yeah, it was absolutely a troll account, but it was such a stupid question, but a good question. because I was able to spin it for a lot of the newer people who are watching me going, hey, that's a good point. So, and you guys feel free to chime in on the chat. I'm going to run through these real quick. Some of the food preps for storage, specifically economic, right? So the cheapest way, and this, I just grabbed a can of chili. You don't have to buy chili, you buy whatever you want. But canned foods, absolutely the most economic and the easiest to find. Flip side, there's a weight penalty. And please, for God's sakes, be sure, because I had TikTok people ask me this. I literally said, canned goods go on sale, stack them such a way. And somebody goes, oh, I resemble that remark. Hey, Yardbird, what's going on? Yeah, it's, yeah, true. Another one, chess pieces move. Somebody was like, well, how do I open my cans if the power goes out? Really? So I looked at the general demographic on that platform, and a lot of them are under 27. And I'm like, okay, there's the problem. You guys haven't learned to use tools and shit. So obviously, most economic way to buy is buy cans, buy cases, buy in bulk, and it usually will work out quite well. Problem is they're heavy. It's not something you can easily throw in a backpack. Hey, Texas Surplus, how you doing, buddy? Dead serious. What do I do if the power goes out? I'm like, buy a manual can opener. Did you not watch the movie American Blackout? And by the way, if you haven't, and if you can still find it on YouTube, it's really not a bad movie. Anyway, so canned goods, definitely cheap. You can't find pasta. I find these everywhere. Now, those of you from Texas have seen this in HEB. This is actually pasta made in Mexico. Sorry for the crinkling. Elaborado con 100% trigo. Anyway, si yo hablo español. Anyway, this is just fideo. It's really vermicelli. If you ever see a box called fideo in the pasta section, it's vermicelli. It's like angel hair, but it's cut up. It's the same stuff. It's just a Mexican or Spanish name for it. It's the same crap. This is an easy prep. They're cheap. These are like 40 cents each. It's half a pound. You get a pile of them, stick them in. Also cheap. These guys, right? And, oh, hold on. All right. Well, hey, Lucky found your channel, bud. And it's on YouTube. I saw it about a month ago. A foil pouch meal from Brazil at HEB. So I saw those. I hadn't, it's like the tuna pouches, but with different meats in them. I've seen them. I haven't, no pun intended, bit on the bait and bought some, but definitely not a bad idea either. Even if you're traveling like I do, you can stick those little pouches in a cooler and yeah, you can totally, but these are really cheap ways to buy now and save yourself money later on. Because keep in mind, right, for a number of, yeah, and what the store's brand name, Hereford. Okay, yes. And keep in mind, you may have to look in different food sections to find stuff to substitute what you want. And that goes back to that the business forces for prepping, right? The power of substitutions. Find the substitute, and then you're not dependent on that one provider. Joe, yeah, it's all good. Ghetto, I was done like 2 hours ago. I was on a conference call and I was gone. I was already finished. The other one, dry goods. Buy them in bulk. Now, I actually store two different ways. I store them in the Mylar bags, and I also store them in mason jars. Now, this is more expensive and it's fragile, but bugs can't get into it. Bugs can chew through Mylar. Those big In Houston, I made the mistake of leaving some Mylar in the detached garage and those big tree roaches you get on the coast, that the ones that fly at night in Louisiana and Texas and Houston, were able to chew through it because they killed the Mylar bags. So again, you have to, I would do a mix because I can always reuse the mason jar for something else. I use the oatmeal. One thing I did do, by the way, is I put the O2 absorber in there, but I also pulled a vacuum on it using the food saver, right? So it's nice and sealed. And then I put instructions. I mean, obviously, they're across the Southeast. I hate those things. Oh, they're terrible. My 6'2" younger brother will literally have a heart attack. I mean, I watched him trip on a chair and almost crack his head open because of those stupid ass roaches. I smack them. I use them for hockey pucks. My cats are really good at killing them. Don't forget to put instructions. Actually, this is an older jar. The newer ones, I'm just writing it on the bottom. The date I stored it. But you know, this will hold, it's a pint, so it should hold what's a pint's 2 cups, 3 cups. You can definitely eat quite a bit. The other thing, dehydrating. I got a cheap dehydrator secondhand from a guy. He was a hunter in the neighborhood and he was moving and he was upgrading at the same time. He was going to buy one of those really bougie dehydrators. So he sold me his, I think it's a Hamilton Beach. They go for about $100. And hey, color drop. Yes. Well, this is how I got this. Texas toast. I actually made breakfast sandwiches with those the other day. I'm going to use those for French toast this weekend. You can get free food, free bread, free other stuff. You buy the main thing, like the meat. And Color Drop, Lucky, Navi, they kind of know what I'm talking about. The way HEB is structured, you get a coupon. Hey, Off the Wall, you get a coupon for, it says buy whatever, you know, beef or chicken or some main plate and get free loaf of bread, free chips, free animal crackers. I'm still eating from the 3-pound animal cracker box I got like 4 months ago. I put them in a sealed bag and like every few days I'll just pour some in a cup and I'll have them as a snack with a coffee. I'm writing the way, hey, Last Prepper, what's going on? I'm writing the date I put it in there. So in other words, like I bought that and put it in the jar, you know, March of 22 or whatever, or I guess that was last year. So I put that date. I don't put the Best Buy date because the dry goods, if they're sealed in a vacuum or with O2 absorbers, in theory should last 20 years. And I may not be here in 20 years. So that was interesting. So yeah, that's what I put on them. So like these, I didn't even put a date on these. Shame on me. There's a pepper fail right there, no date. But I dehydrated the peas and carrots, and I stuck them in here. And every now and then you need to pull them and inspect them. If you get fungus or anything, maybe there was a little moisture you didn't catch. You know, you toss it, but at least you keep a rotating inspection of what you've made. And make music with this thing. But yeah, I dehydrated, and I used what I did to make this easier. If you're gonna dehydrate veggies, you have to blanch them and cut them, and it's a pain in the ass. So what I do, I buy the frozen ones, because in order to do the deep freeze, you know, for those $1 bags of veggies you get at the store, they have to blanch them and cut them for you in advance. So you already have it. Hey, Rip Curl, what's going on? So, Jennifer, howdy. So, yeah, drive safely, Off the Wall. There's enough people having wrecks because, well, a lot of them are texting and not paying attention to what they're doing. Yeah, we want to see you. By the way, Off the Wall did a video with a face overlay of like 4 different movies, and it was absolutely the funniest and most bizarre thing I've ever seen. So yeah, check out the channel and go see. because that was funny. But I dehydrated them, and again, dehydrated, no oxygen, should last at least a decade according to the books. So these are the most inexpensive ways to store. If you want to go even cheaper than this, I think you can use a Mylar bag for the dehydrated veggies. That's a little more economic. I have some veggies in mason jars and some in Mylar, so it's kind of a mix. But that would be like the next level of expense. So the cheapest thing is just buying the pasta, the canned goods. They're easy to find. They're very cheap. Next level, you start putting it in mason jars, putting it in Mylar bags, because now it does go up in cost, right? You have the cost of the product and the cost of the storage item, whatever it is, the Mylar or the. And oh, no worries, Jennifer. Thanks. And Jennifer had a really good sermon the other night, so I don't remember. I think it was last night. Go catch that one if you want to hear some really fun scriptures. Where the hell was the other thing? Oh yeah. So those are cheap ways, and you heard the analysts we just listened to, and the senator and the reporters. It's not going to be a question of availability in North America. It's going to be a question of cost. So the fixed income, and Ghetto was saying earlier that they reach out to the neighbors who are retired, make sure they have stuff, they trade stuff. Thank you, Lucky. It's yes, American Blackout. Thank you. That was the name. American Blackout is a good movie about that. And right. So yeah, and canned goods, inexpensive, but they're heavy. You got a weight penalty. Now, I'm prepping, and many of you are, because from the perspective of I own a home, I have a property, which is going to be my primary location. I don't intend to bug out unless there's like a fire or nuclear blast, some Godzilla shows up. But if you live in a city like Angry Prepper does, or there are a few others, there's one on another platform. She calls herself Perky Prepper, and she lives in an apartment. It's a high rise. So everything she does has to be mobile, but also have shelf life. And that's quite different. It was last night, yes. Which, by the way, is a very ancient Christian gesture. And that, yeah, I was able to stay in just long enough to hear some of it, and then work called me again. So, yeah, unfortunately, give to Caesar that which is Caesar, right? I don't remember what scripture that is, but so if you're living where you may have to bug out, now you have the next level, and this is a little more cost, right? So stuff like this, and I'm sure everyone in the chat has seen one of these. Yeah, and right, that's an option, but then you have the cost of the storage facility, unless you have an agreement with someone or you have materials. Rather, you have access to it at low or no cost. You're going to have the cost of the storage bin. On the flip side, if you're in an apartment, that may be worth the expense. Yeah. It would take a lot, like a wildfire or something like that. Then you have to go or you'll die. I mean, that's pretty much what it is. Yes. So a lot of options. Some folks I know, they have family that, the cousins or whatever, they live in different cities, and everyone preps. Hey, Zombie. Woo. What's up, Zombie? Everyone preps with the assumption that, family A may have to go to family B, or family B may have to go to family A. You can coordinate with relatives if you think they're trustworthy. The problem is, as many of us know, blood is not always thicker than water. Sometimes blood is stupid. I'm just throwing it out there. Sometimes relatives cause the most problems. So you may need to be able to leave and go on foot, stuff like this. But this used to be about $5 a unit. And now they're 10, 12. It's ridiculous. You want a case of 12 of them, you're looking at 120 to 150 bucks. So that's expensive, and it only has a 7-year shelf life. although I've eaten them past that. And I mean, you open it. If it smells bad, don't eat it, right? The cookies and the biscuits last forever. I've never seen one of those go bad. Thank you, Lucky. Britain Blackout. There's a lot of, there it is, American Blackout. Thank you. There's a lot of stuff you can learn from videos like that, but also make sure if you're in a place where you may have to bug out, you're in an apartment, you're in the city, even if you're in a home in the city, like one of those gentrified areas, you may have to leave. A lot of folks who lived in the Bel Air, Montrose area of Houston, which was by Bray's Bayou, got flooded. Those were $500,000, $1 million homes. They didn't plan to bug out. And that included one of my guard buddies was down there, and his first floor got flooded, right? Fortunately, he has, he had gear, he had knowledge. Obviously, when they called all of us, he didn't show up, and we went to check on him. He was at a hotel that we couldn't get to anyway, because that was kind of surrounded by water. But, those folks didn't plan to leave, and they were in their own property. So you got to understand the area around you. And then you have stuff like this, right? And these guys actually impressed me. This is the old Wise food company. They call themselves ReadyWise now. And they have this goofy little squirrel guy on the back. I've done a few videos of these, me making mac and cheese versus their mac and cheese side by side. But stuff like this, it's light. It has a 30-year shelf life, but your cost point is higher. And you got to cook it. You got to prepare it. Now, some of them, not this one, they have adventure meals. And the other manufacturers, Artisan Farms, Mountain House, they all have different variations, but you do have to prepare it. Some are boil in the bag. This particular one is not. They do have some boil in bags. So lucky with the squirrel. But they got different meals. And these are bueno. I've tried a few of them. Also mix and match your preps, right? So you have the rice stored. You can do the rice with the dehydrated veggies, reconstituted, throw in some of the frozen meat, and bam. You have a decent meal for people. Assuming you have power, and this will be the last one I show you guys. You also have stuff like this, right? So this is from a year ago. I actually opened the squirrel. After Armageddon. That one's an interesting one. Guys, check that one out. That would be cool. Okay, so it's kind of like a serious pandemic, not a confused one. I bought these in bulk a year ago. So these are from last July. I bought a whole section of salmon. I cut it up. I seasoned it. I kept the seasons dry seasoning only. So I didn't have the risk of like an oil or something turning in the freezer. It normally won't, but it may disflavor what you've got. And, you break it up into meal-ready amounts. So 2 people, 2 fillets, this will be dinner tonight. And that's how I rotate my preps. I'll make dinner. When I get about halfway down, I'm like, okay, I'll buy another set of salmon, cut them up, and put them at the bottom of the same bin. But yeah, this is Food Saver. I would recommend whatever the amount of your product is, give yourself at least, I tell people 3 fingers above, because you're going to lose like a finger and a half to the seal on the top. So once you seal the bottom, make sure you have enough 3 fingers above what you think you're going to, at a minimum. You may want to do more. I mean, you waste a little plastic. Oh, who cares? But that will allow me to eat fish at the price point from a year ago before everything got inflated. So, yes, there are a lot of full-length movies and shows that you guys need to check out. But guys, like I said, I'm going to not do the full shebang with my video, because I do have to jump on a Hudson's at 7 Texas time, 8 East Coast time. But go check out some of these videos. Hey, Sherry, what's going on? I'm glad you made it. Call a midwife. Very good. These are, there are a lot of good videos Lucky just posted over there, and those are great lessons. I mean, it's a fun movie. The acting in a lot of them is not awesome, but it makes you think. And keep in mind, a lot of these movies are made from the perspective of the average person. So when you see the stupid in American Blackout, for instance, not to ruin anything, but there's a couple in a high-rise apartment, very fancy, you know, like the Midtown, whatever apartments, and they don't have a can opener, manual can opener. So then they're fighting trying to open a can. And if you're watching, you're like, you're an idiot. But remember, we're folks who are thinking preparedness, thinking opening your cans. Yeah, very few do. But keep in mind, a lot of them are done from the perspective of the average person. So if you've ever watched Black Summer, which is a very goofy zombie series, and it actually went into the second season, you look at them shoot and run from the zombies. Hey, whoop ass, Ark Wildman, how are you? And you wonder, what are you doing? Hold the rifle right. You're going to shoot yourself in the foot. But if you think about it, take my son, when they hit basic training, in any squad of 10 people, 2 had fired a firearm before. Maybe 3 or 4 had serious outdoor skills. FFA, 4-H, geology type kids, stuff like that. The other 6 had literally no clue. Literally no clue. And that's what we're all going to be dealing with in the public, probably even worse, because remember, those kids are volunteering to do this. So you go to the general public, maybe for every one of us in the chat who's thinking along these lines, and none of us are professional, right? We're thinking of this stuff. There's probably 15 to 20 that don't know what they're doing. And it also depends where you live. Out in West Texas, a little more country, a lot of hikers, skiers, fishermen, outdoorsy type folks. Outside of Denver, like Brighton, Colorado, up in the countryside, they're probably going to do okay. Midtown Manhattan, not going to do okay. Chicago, not going to do okay. You know, it depends where you are and the general culture around you. But guys, I'm going to cut this one short. I hope you guys got something out of these tips for food. And remember, you have economic, you have more expensive. It purely depends on what you can afford, but make sure you have a variety if you can afford it. Actually, Lucky, if you have seen Fear the Walking Dead, they actually, the whole first season is the beginning of the outbreak, whereas The Walking Dead, you know, the sheriff guy, Rick, he just wakes up in a hospital, which they totally stole from 28 Days Later. Because 28 Days Later came out 7 years before The Walking Dead. And who knows, maybe they stole it from the Walking Dead comic book. But Fear the Walking Dead, the first season, actually has the beginning of the outbreak. And where it starts, and then how the public, and there's one scene in particular where one of the characters is kind of taking pictures of everything going on, and he goes to like a Five and Dime, like a gas station, and the owner is rolling a pallet of water out, and the cops are just throwing pallets of, you know, cases of water in their trunk, and they look at the kid, and the kid looks at the cops, and his friend goes, "Oh shit," because the cops knew something was up, right? And that's another thing. You see the cops start and all the first responders suddenly start acting a certain way, something's up. But anyway, yeah. Good. I want to say South American producer. Oh, God, I know which one you're talking about. Nice. Yeah, and that probably gave someone a heart attack. Okay, did I describe it right? They were going into like a gas station to get like sodas or something. It was something stupid, actually. And the cops are throwing food and water, and they were all like, why are they doing that? And that's the first hint you know something's seriously gone wrong. But anyway, gang, you guys be good. I hope you got something out of some of the tips I have. And I know you guys are all doing different things. So afterwards, if something pops in your head, throw it in the comments. Don't forget, like and subscribe and all that fun stuff. And I will see you guys probably at 7 with the Hudson Valley. So you guys be good, be safe, and I will touch base with you guys later on.